I'm going to reveal which back injuries are currently getting the highest settlements. I'll expose why one person can get a huge payout for a back injury, yet someone else with the same injury can get little to nothing. We're going to start off with back injuries that are usually worth the most. We'll then work our way down to back injuries that generally lead to smaller settlements. We'll focus on the value of your pain and suffering. That's the hardest part of your case to calculate. Figuring out how much you're owed for medical bills and lost wages is usually much easier than figuring out how much your pain and suffering is worth. When we calculate how much your case may be worth, we add your pain and suffering, medical bills, and lost wages. This gets us to your full settlement value, but there's no guarantee that you'll get paid the full settlement value in your back injury case. This is because there are many factors that can destroy your case. The complete list of things that can make your case worthless is too long to list here. To keep it simple, just know that the three main case killers are the following. No one else is at fault, or you're mainly at fault. The accident didn't cause your back injury, or the at-fault person or company doesn't have insurance or money to pay you. Let me quickly explain why each of these factors can destroy your case. If you're primarily responsible for the accident, it's difficult to hold someone else liable for your injuries. The legal system bases compensation on fault, so proving that another party is responsible is crucial for a successful claim. If you can't prove that the accident directly caused or aggravated your injury, the opposing party will argue that they're not responsible for damages. Medical evidence linking the accident to your back injury is essential for your case. Even if you win your case, collecting compensation can be impossible if the other party lacks the financial resources or insurance coverage. Unfortunately, you can't get blood from a stone. I'll give you a quick example of one of these case killers in action. The back injury that's worth the most is if you get paralyzed. It's worth the most because it has the biggest effect on your daily life. This catastrophic injury often results in lifelong disabilities, ongoing medical treatment, and the inability to work or perform everyday activities. It drastically reduces your quality of life and can lead to emotional distress, which is why it commands higher compensation for pain and suffering. Paralysis can often result in settlements where $1 million or more of the settlement is for your pain and suffering. Your pain and suffering can also be in the multiple millions for this injury and climb up to $25 million or maybe more. But let's say that you have this horrible injury, but you also have one of the factors that destroys your case. For example, let's say that you got paralyzed in an accident. However, the person that caused your accident has no insurance or money to pay you. To keep it simple, let's assume that the full value of pain and suffering is $5 million. The full value of your pain and suffering assumes the at-fault person or company is 100% at fault and they caused your injury. If the at-fault person or company has no insurance or money to pay, you might not see a dime. Your case is only as good as your ability to collect from the at-fault person or company. This is because winning a lawsuit doesn't automatically mean you'll receive the money. If the at-fault party doesn't have insurance or sufficient assets, there may be no practical way to collect the damages awarded to you. The legal system can't extract money that doesn't exist. So even though your severe spinal injury is worth $5 million or more, you may not even get a penny. This assumes that the at-fault person or company has no coverage or money to pay you. Sadly, most drivers are uninsured or underinsured. It's a crisis that I witness every single day in accident cases. I know it's not fair, but that's the way our system works. Now, if a large company caused your accident and injury, then insurance doesn't matter much. For example, let's say that a UPS, Amazon, or FedEx truck hits you, or you slip and fall at Target. Since those are huge companies, they'll have enough money to pay any claim. This is true no matter how big your claim is. That's because large corporations typically have substantial assets and extensive insurance policy to cover liability claims. They're financially equipped to handle large settlements, so collecting your compensation is more straightforward compared to cases involving individuals with limited resources. What happens if someone else is at fault, but you're partially at fault also? This often happens in slip or trip and fall cases, but also happens in many car accident cases too. In this instance, you're only able to recover in proportion to the careless person's percentage at fault. This is due to the legal principle of comparative negligence. Under this rule, your compensation is reduced by your percentage of fault, in the accident. The idea is that you shouldn't be fully compensated for damages that you partly caused yourself. Let's assume someone else is 75% at fault and you're 25% at fault in causing your accident. In this instance, you only get compensated for 75% of the full value of your case. Thus, your percentage at fault has a huge effect on your case value. When I reveal the full value of pain and suffering for each back injury, I'll give a range. Like any range, it has a low end and a high end. The low end is when you heal well. The high end is if one of the following applies. You're left with a large disability, you have a long extended period of treatment, or you have lots of pain. Insurance companies look at how often you get medical treatment for your back injury. They put lots of weight on this because going to your doctor is evidence that your injury is affecting your quality of life. Going to a doctor to complain of your pain is 10 times more important than telling the insurance company that you're in pain. That's because medical records serve as objective evidence of your suffering. Regular visits show that your pain is severe enough to seek continual professional help, which strengthens your case. Insurance companies trust documented medical evidence over your personal statement. Of course, your testimony of how your back injury is affecting your life also matters. But it's hard for you to argue that it's really affecting your life badly when you're not even going to the doctor. If you injured your back in an accident in Florida or on a cruise and you think someone else is at fault, click the link in the description below to see if I could be the lawyer for you. Many people who hurt their back in an accident also suffer other injuries like a neck injury, a concussion, or something else. In these cases, the pain and suffering values for each injury are added together. That's why cases with multiple injuries are often worth the most. We've been seeing some large jury verdicts for this next injury on our list. Its pain and suffering value has increased massively in the last few years. In fact, the jury recently awarded almost $4 million in pain and suffering for this back injury. A woman slipped and fell at a public supermarket in Florida. However, the pain and suffering award would have been similar if she was injured in a car or truck accident. Although verdicts for this injury can be over $1 million, the average pain and suffering value is much lower. For settlement purposes, the full value of pain and suffering is between $300,000 and $500,000. So what's this back injury? It's when you have one level of your back vertebra fused. A fusion surgery is where doctors connect two bones in your spine to make it more stable and to reduce pain. Spinal fusion is a major procedure with significant risks and a long recovery period. It can limit your range of motion and may lead to chronic pain or complications. This surgery often indicates a severe injury that has a profound impact on your daily life. If you have two or more levels in your spine fused, the pain and suffering award increases to between $400,000 and $600,000. One battle in fusion cases is that the insurance company will likely argue that your spine was already worn out before the accident. In other words, they're going to say that you had this back injury before the accident. If you sue, they'll likely hire a doctor who will testify to this. That's why it's crucial to have clear medical documentation showing that the accident aggravated a pre-existing condition or caused a new injury. Without this evidence, it becomes an uphill battle to prove that the defendant is responsible for your back fusion surgery. If you were in a car or truck accident, it also helps your case if you were turned at the time of impact. It's easier to argue the underlying need for your fusion surgery was caused by the accident if your body was turned when you were hit. Now let's look at the settlement value of herniated discs. A typical herniated disc has a full pain and suffering settlement value between $50,000 to $75,000. The value has gone up huge in the past few years. That said, insurance companies like Progressive, Allstate, State Farm, and many others fight herniated disc cases hard. One of my better settlements for a herniated disc was for $100,000 involving all of the following. Another driver, not my client, was clearly at fault. The damage to the car my client was in was huge. My client took an ambulance to the hospital from the accident scene. The hospital gave my client morphine, which is a heavy-duty drug, because their back pain was so intense. The hospital bill charges were large. The MRI showed one or more disc herniations in his lower back. My client had about 2 months of chiropractic treatment, and the available insurance limits were $100,000. Does this mean in every case where you have all those factors above, you're going to get a $100,000 settlement? No way. And even though the car insurance company paid $100,000, they dragged their feet and delayed paying. It's just what I found that insurance companies do. Let's talk about injections. A herniated disc with injections over a course of 6 to, say, 12 months can be worth $100,000 for its full value of pain and suffering. This could be an epidural steroid injection, facet joint injections, or any type of injection. Injections indicate that conservative methods weren't effective and that you're experiencing ongoing pain. Regular injections over months demonstrate the severity and persistence of your injury, which increases the pain and suffering component of your claim. Injections alone may be worth $50,000 to $100,000 in full value for pain and suffering. If you have a herniated disc with complications, the full value of pain and suffering may be $100,000. A herniated disc on someone who is older may be worth $100,000 in pain and suffering. This is because older people are more likely to have complications. A herniated disc with 2 or 3 years of medical treatment can have a full value of pain and suffering of $100,000 or more. Now, the bad news. Many people already have a herniated disc before their accident. In fact, as I sit here right now, I have a herniated disc pressing on my spinal cord. And guess what? I don't have anyone to make a claim against for it. This means that the insurance company will take a hard look at the actual crash or other impact in your case. They don't want to pay you for an injury that the accident didn't cause. If you were in a car accident and the car suffered little to no damage, expect a hard fight, especially when making a claim with Progressive, Allstate, State Farm, Geico, and others. They'll argue that the force from a fender bender wasn't enough to cause or worsen your herniated disc. To expose the next most valuable back injury in terms of its pain and suffering value, let's look at Ray's real case. Ray was driving a car in Miami, Florida when an oncoming van made a left turn. The front of Ray's car struck the front of the van. Police came to the scene, but paramedics weren't called. In fact, the police report said that there were no injuries. The front and driver's side of Ray's car was damaged. But Ray had back pain and his girlfriend drove him to the hospital. They put a neck collar on him to keep his upper spine straight. While there, the hospital took a CT scan of his back and saw that he had a small fracture in his spine. Ray hired me as his lawyer. The doctor admitted him to the hospital for severe upper back pain. In other words, the hospital gave him a room for him to spend the night. He complained of bad back pain and they kept him for a whopping 6 days. When they released him, he followed up with the spine doctor. He also got physical therapy, but his 6-day hospital stay left him with a huge hospital bill. 40 days had passed since the accident, and the van driver's insurance company hadn't fixed the car that Ray was driving. The insurance claims rep insisted she needed to take Ray's statement before paying for the car damage. I denied her request and told her that the only person Ray is going to talk to was me. The neurosurgeon who saw Ray at the hospital said that he couldn't tell if this was an acute fracture. In other words, he couldn't say whether the fracture was caused by the accident. This was not good for Ray's case. This is because it's your burden to prove that the accident caused or aggravated your injury. Ray had a couple of disc protrusions in his lower back and pain. He got 1 epidural steroid injection to his lower back. I got the van driver's insurance company to fix Ray's car. After a battle, I got the van's insurance company to offer $150,000 for Ray's personal injury case. Then, through aggressive negotiations, I finally persuaded them to pay $260,000 to settle Ray's personal injury case. Since Ray had a Medicaid health plan, it paid most of his hospital bills. After paying his medical bills, paying Medicaid, and my lawyer's fees and costs, he got over $167,900 in his pocket, and he was thrilled. A compression fracture to one of the vertebrae in your back has a full value of pain and suffering of $50,000 or more. The $50,000 or more value is for one single compression fracture without surgery. Injections to the fracture may be worth $50,000 to $100,000 in full value for pain and suffering. In one of my recent Florida car accident cases, my client Aaron had a compression fracture and injections. He was given a back brace. He had some other minor injuries too. At first, one of the liable insurance companies refused to offer a cent. They said my client's claim wasn't even worth $100,000, but I fought and ultimately settled for $135,000, and Aaron was thrilled. I estimate the insurance companies paid at least $80,000 for pain and suffering. What about the most common back injury, which is just pain in your back? This back injury is usually worth the least. But let's look at Mark's real case to show you why. Mark was in a car accident in Miami, Florida. The front of his car sustained a lot of damage. He went to the hospital, but not by ambulance. He hired me as his lawyer. Mark got therapy to his back and neck. It took the insurance company 27 days to pay him for his car damage. Mark didn't rent the car during this time. However, we still made a claim against the other driver's insurance for the loss of use of his car during those 27 days. They paid $2,300. The best part was that I didn't charge Mark a fee on this. When you don't get an MRI, the insurance company will usually offer you less in your back injury case. This is because insurance companies value hard evidence. Insurance companies are skeptic about pain alone. I got the other drivers and Mark's underinsured motorist insurance to offer $20,000 for his injury case. Around $16,700 of this amount is for his pain and suffering. The full value of pain and suffering for back pain can range from $1,000 to $20,000 or so. Now, the $20,000 upper limit on the full value of pain and suffering for back pain isn't the most that you can ever get, but I'm talking about what's the most likely range. To have the best chance at getting towards the upper part of the $20,000 pain and suffering range, you'll likely need all of the following. Huge damage to the cars. You took an ambulance to the hospital or went to the emergency room shortly after the crash. You got consistent therapy for your back pain. And you have big medical bills. It also helps your chances of getting towards the upper end of the $20,000 range if the airbag's deployed in your car or the other car or truck. This is because it shows that you were in a heavy impact crash. The thing is, so many people don't get paid fair value for their back injury case because they don't use a simple claim trick. I've used this proven tactic to pressure insurance companies to pay me combined millions of dollars in back injury cases. I reveal what this claim trick is in the video that's on screen now and linked in the description below, so watch it now. And if you injured your back in an accident in Florida or on a cruise and think someone else is at fault, click the link in the description below to see if I could be the lawyer for you.